Now, our next speaker, in 2015, a young Iranian woman, Mojgan Shamsalipoor, was brutally taken from her husband and her school, Yeronga State High, and put into detention. Again, the community rallied and fought for her release. Our next speaker, Jessica Walker, was the deputy principal of her school, and she was one of the community members that rallied for Mojgan. She helped found the Free Mojgan campaign and also the Teachers for Refugees and the People Seeking Asylum, a subgroup of the Queensland Teachers Union. Please make Jessica welcome.
Thank you, Mark. As I begin to share my story today, an update about Mojgan and also some reflections from teachers across Queensland and the impact these terrible policies are having on our young people in our schools, I too would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of our land, the Yagara and Turrbal people, and say how proud I am as an Australian to be born into a country where for over 60,000 years the First Nations people have cared for these lands. First of all, I'd like to start off with some really wonderful news. For people who are aware of Mojgan's story, I've got some updates to share. So Mojgan arrived on our shores over 10 years ago seeking asylum, a young girl. She was denied her case for asylum. She was living in community detention for a long time, and then she was taken into immigration detention when she was still a high school student. She was then forcibly removed from the immigration detention centre in Brisbane, and when I say forcibly, I mean by force. She was dragged along the ground, her hair was pulled out of her head, she was injured and then thrown onto a plane and taken to Darwin. And that's when our school became really involved in this case and petitioned for her release. We petitioned for a long time and we held many rallies. I remember we filled out this park with people and we didn't give up, and then finally she was released from detention, which was a wonderful day of celebration for us and everybody who was supporting her. She was able to return to the arms of her husband, return into her community. But Mojgan still doesn't have permanent residency. She still has a bridging visa that's renewed every 3 to 6 months. Despite this, and despite the fact that the conditions of that bridging visa have denied her the human right to access tertiary education, she has been able to have an incredibly successful life. Today, Mojgan, just this year, has been given permanent employment at Yeronga State High School, working as a receptionist and also working in HR. An incredible feat, despite the fact that she's never been given permanent residency. Yeah, amazing. And Mojgan was planning to be here today, but for a very good reason, she's unable to be here. Mojgan is expecting her first child. A wonderful news. She's about to become a young mum, and she's about to have a addition to her family. She's still with her beautiful husband Millard. They own a house together and they're establishing this life. But cruelly, she still has not been given permanent residency. She still cannot call herself a permanent citizen of this country, an Australian. And that is what she so desperately wants. Why can she not be given permanent residency? It does not make any sense to me. When we heard the news that there was a change in government, we too celebrated. We celebrated for all of the people who have thought, you know what, the Labor government seems to be saying different things. They're saying that they're going to help people who are in these situations. They're going to return the family from below to below where they belong. Words are one thing. Where are the actions? We need to see that this government truly walk the talk. We need to see the permanent residents. We need to see those visas being granted. We need to end the suffering for people who are going 6 month by 6 month at a time. It's not fair. And these people contribute so much to our communities. They are so hardworking, and all they want are the same human rights that everybody else enjoys. So we need to keep up this fight. At the school where I currently am, I have 2 stories I'd like to share with you. One, a young girl in Year 9, the other, a young man in Year 11. These students are so hard working. They are the young man in year 11 is studying an academic pathway. He'd like to go into business. He has aspirations to go to university, and his parents are working hard too. The young girl in year 9 told me most recently she wants to be a doctor. How much I was reminded of Mojgan telling me she wanted to be a midwife. She too is a hard worker, great aspirations for her future. These two young people, not from the same family, from different families, have been in Australia for 10 years. They've been attending school for 10 years in our country. They don't have permanent residency, they don't have protection visas, their cases have not even been heard. They are living on bridging visas, so that means when they graduate, they can't go to university. It will depend on what the conditions of their visa are. Some of them, like Mojgan, may be denied the right to go to university, even if they can pay for it. Even if they get scholarships, they will not be able to study at university. If they are more fortunate and they do have the right to study at university, they will be considered students, even though they've lived the majority of their life in Australia, even though they are seeking asylum. And they would have to pay tens of thousands of dollars to be able to go to university. These young people have such hope, and it is so cruel and unkind and heartless that we are treating young people this way. We need to stand up and speak up for these people, because if we don't do it, who will? We need to get in contact with our politicians, with our newly elected federal members, and say enough is enough. We will not support these cruel policies, and you need to walk the talk. You need to show us the reason we came out in force and elected you. We elected you because we were hopeful for a better future. Show us that future. Show Mojgan, show the students in our school that you do care and that you will make a difference, and you will show the world the compassionate Australia that I believe in. Thank you for being here today.